you can just get this isn't working, but I think we're good. Can everybody hear me? Hear me in the back? Hear me? So, greetings. My name is Terry Parker. I'm the president of the Legal Women Voters of Lake County. What I usually say is that I do none of the directing, it directs me. And when you have a board and other volunteers at the level we have right now, it's like we can just go so many places. I'm so excited to be here. So I'm just off of 12 weeks on a 40-foot sailboat up the Inside Passage off grid. And so I'm still a little bit shaky, but I have to tell you, I'm finding my footing. It's just so exciting that you're all here today. I'm going to start with a few announcements. The mayor, Eugene Mayor Kaarin Knudson, is coming from another meeting, and we'll grab her when she comes in the door. Is Aaliyah here? Did Aaliyah make it in today from NAACP? Okay, so we have many guests in the room, and so I just want to acknowledge Judy Abel. Judy? Athena, if I mess up your name, just forgive me. Athena Aguiar, did I get that right? Anna Alkin, Anna, welcome. Marge Barnhart. Ani, is Ani Bonner? Hi, Ani. Janet Butler. Pamela Carey, just met Pam the other day. Dorlinda Curl. Fontaine Parhu. Fontaine, oh yeah, that's table. It's got a bunch of our guests. Gail Bisman. Shirley Kingsbury, where's Shirley? Virginia Newby. Ann O'Brien. Carrie, is it Pape? Aaliyah Payne, she may be coming. Susan, where's Susan Posner? So, Susan, Sharon, she didn't make it. Eva Proner. So she has a following already. Erin Rice, Sarah Rodman, Carol Ward, and I apologize if we missed you. There's just so many of you here as guests today, and we have some new members. That would be Susan Van. Susan, hello. We have another world behind us. I'm so glad to see you here. Margaret Conover, Flo Delaney, Ann Miller, and Erica Patterson. I can't tell you how excited I am to have you all around. On your tables, there are a few items that you could take note of. You can take those with you, and they're there for you to use. There's a menu. I just want to remind you that it takes a village to save democracy. And so whether you have an hour a month, an hour a week, 10 minutes for a day here and there are a number of things, and Sharon Amasha particularly would want you to kind of sign up for any of those things on the menu item. She puts that together and does a great job. Thank you all for coming out. We want to thank the good folks here at the First United Methodist Church for sharing their space with us, because it made us capable of having this many people in the room all spread out. And we want to thank our caterer at the Glenwood Restaurant. Thank you. If you have been here around for a while, the Glenwood is a Eugene business since 1976. That's just about the time I got here. So yeah. Dishes will be bussed, as I announced earlier, from the tables after the program. Please just put dirty dishes toward the middle. Don't need to kind of fuss with them. I'm going to announce some upcoming events at the end of our session, and I have a few other announcements in the end. But right now, I want to introduce to you our Eugene Mayor, who just came from another meeting, so she's been busy. So, one other thing. We have a question and answer session. You all have such great questions. Peggy and Suzanne are going to be picking up the questions, and you write them on the note cards that are at the center of your table. So we'll get to as many of those as we can. It allows us to kind of get through the duplicates. But as the mayor's speaking, if you have a question, please write it down, and then we'll collect those. Welcome again to the kickoff of our guest speaker series. It's a pleasure to introduce to you Eugene Mayor Kaarin Knudson. There's so much you likely, oops, this is like coming out, but I think I can do this. There's so much you likely already know about her, as she's been on the speaking circuit, so to speak, since becoming mayor 9 months ago. She's an architect, an advocate, an educator, a writer, a mom, and she loves Tracktown, USA. So this isn't your regular introduction because I never really liked those. So here's a little bit more about Kaarin. As mayor, she started producing Minutes with the Mayor right after you got in as mayor on Instagram. And if you followed her over the last 9 months, you've joined her briefly to the MLK celebration and NAACP reflections. You've joined her for an early morning run in Hendricks Park. That I did vicariously. I wasn't really there. Town halls with Senator Merkley, and just last week she was the calming voice at a really lively town hall with Senator Wyden. The heavy lift of Eugene budget process. She's been on art walks, a porch tour at Peace Village. She provided local flooding alerts and follow-up when we had risks of flooding in the area. She went to the Transgender Day of Visibility, advocacy sessions in Washington, D.C. with the Lane United Front, celebration of the Eugene Ballet, Sabrina Day, Juneteenth. She floated the Mackenzie and Willamette rivers. She did bikes to the Community Ridge to River bike ride. You could join her for a run in Central Park while in New York City for the kickoff of the 2026 City Leadership Initiative that has 47 invited mayors from 17 countries. So we'll ask more about that. The Downtown River Park, the Sunday Renewable Energy event, the Eugene Bright Parade, and more. That's her year. And there's a lot more. She doesn't just walk the talk, she's running at a champion's pace. We welcome her today to speak to her biggest challenges, successes, and surprises as she closes in on her first year as Eugene's mayor. Kaarin Knudson.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. It is such a pleasure to be here with you, and not just because that is maybe the absolute kindest and most research-based introduction that I ever received. I would expect no less from the Women voters. Thank you so much, Terry. Thank you so much, Ruth, for the invitation to be with you today. If I look a little misty, the other reason I'm so delighted to be here is that it has been a very full day, a very full 9 months, especially full last 48 hours. And I was coming directly from another meeting, and I was needing to drive my car here, and when I hopped in my car 15 minutes ago, it would not start. And so, thank goodness, we have a bike share program in our community. Peace Health Ride. Big shout out to Cascadia Mobility, who manages that program, to Peace Health, for making it possible for your mayor to be here with you today. And to my bicycle that's now waiting outside to take me over to Olive Plaza to celebrate the grand opening of that project after many years of construction immediately after this meeting. I was looking back last week at this invitation and how this gathering today was framed. And the two themes that were noted to me, civic engagement in a changing Oregon and addressing critical issues facing Oregon. And then also some big questions, and specific questions that I was asked to speak to about what has surprised me, what the biggest challenges you're facing look like, what I'm especially excited about, but also what keeps me up at night. And so I'll begin with some of the immediate things. We are living through a truly extraordinary time in our communities, in our state, and in our country. And if you take nothing else away from our conversation today, please redouble your efforts to reach out in community, to connect in community, to share the good information that you have, to have meaningful conversations, and ask thoughtful, clarifying questions, and help us to reconnect with one another and reconnect with the fundamental aspects of a shared reality and an understanding of the challenge that we're facing at this particular point in time. Well, I will reply to you all. And we can talk more about this in the Q&A, but what does redoubling an effort look like? I'm an architect. You all do very thoughtful research. You're engaged in our community in innumerable ways. I would begin with an inventory. I would begin with maybe even a coffee meeting or a dinner party and spend 5 minutes at the beginning of that gathering just making a list, an inventory of all the different ways that you touch our community, the different community groups you're a part of, the different people who you look to for advice and who you can say with earned confidence and humility look to you for advice. And points of contact and leverage. The league is so good at bringing accurate information and research into our community conversations. And truly one of the greatest challenges that we face right now is an absence of a shared agreement on what reality is in our particular communities and in our places. I mentioned that it's been an exciting last 48 hours, and I will just share with you a little bit of the background as to why, though I really appreciate Terry highlighting the ways in which I am trying to make local government accessible and to humanize the experience of public service for people, to do what I can to communicate effectively all of the different types of work that are happening in our city every day. And I will tell you the biggest challenge with that is that your mayor is an office of one with one dedicated scheduler at the city of Eugene who just helps me to manage the incoming requests to my inbox. So when I'm making those minutes with the mayor, it's just me. And it's just an unscripted conversation, with the exception of the minute that I shared yesterday. And the reason that that minute yesterday was unscripted is because I was sharing the remarks that I presented in a press conference in Portland. What has happened in recent days is reason to give us a sense of calm focus, and also a sense of attention, because the administration's, President Trump's decision with Secretary Texas, Secretary Nome to call up 200 members of our National Guard and federalize them for deployment within the city of Portland is an issue that should concern us all. And not just because, leaves most people just wondering, how did it get here? That sounds crazy. I thought Portland, it seems nice. It seems fine. And it is. It's a beautiful day in Portland on Sunday. When this announcement was realized, a beautiful day in Portland yesterday, first kind of rain of the fall. The reasons I think that the league should be particularly concerned with this is what I am learning as your mayor is that a lot of people don't understand why that is unconstitutional. They don't understand what the role of the National Guard is, what the role of our military is, what the role of our local law enforcement is. And in the absence of that historical context and clarification of terms, and I had a conversation which was delightful with a reporter late last night, where just very quickly in our conversation, the terminology shifted from a discussion of a federalized National Guard to, well, what about, when people are seeing all this local law enforcement, how are they supposed to respond? Whoa. They're not seeing local law enforcement. That's not what this is. And just that tiny shift in language in that real moment in time are the kinds of things that we have to keep track of if we want to have any hope of people understanding what's going on. So what I'm realizing is that a lot of people, and I never would have imagined that as a mayor, this was going to be the deep dive that I was heading into, stepping into office this January, that trying to understand post-Reconstruction lawmaking, the limitations of our military's engagement in cities, the responsibilities that are only given to local law enforcement and that are decisions of local governments and governors, and how those very specific responsibilities, and limitations relate to other things like the Insurrection Act, and why it is that you are seeing visual information that might lead an uninformed public to think, well, there is something going on there. Look at those videos I just saw that are from 5 years ago, in a completely different point in time, from a completely different perspective. This is not easy work. It's really hard to intervene and interrupt misinformation when the train is already moving. It's one of the reasons why an organization like the League is so important, because you already have pre-existing connections within our community that can help you to step in to those spaces and slow things down and ask a few questions and then provide better information. So Mayor Wilson from Portland called me on Sunday morning. We've been in touch many times over the past several months. I've felt for some time that it is very important for all of us in all of our different responsibilities and community to be networking in a way that allows us to be in communication and collaborative and working to support and protect the full needs of our community. And after I saw some of the news announcements coming out of Portland, I just sent him a short text late on Saturday night expressing my solidarity and my support, human to human, knowing that these are heavy burdens and responsibilities to carry when we feel absolutely responsible to the oaths that we have taken and the rule of law in our communities and in our state and in our country. And it does feel often as though we are facing a circumstance where the other side of the table does not feel similarly burdened or similarly responsible. So Mayor Wilson reached out to me on Sunday morning. I said, Mayor, it's great to be in touch with you. I want to ask you two things. One, I'm going to share with you a joint statement that we've been preparing with the metro area mayors. We've been trying to organize around what might happen and plan for all scenarios. As an architect, you can imagine, I love a good collection of scenario plans. I think that it's great to know that you have planned for all sorts of challenging circumstances and then you never need to use those plans. That's a great feeling when you find yourself not in a scenario that was the one you were most worried about. But he said, I'd like you to take a look at this joint statement and sign it if you can. I realize this is incredibly short notice. And we're just realizing, now that we've gathered among the group that we can connect with and established a foundation, we're trying to reach out very quickly to other mayors. This is about 9:30 on Sunday morning. My children are in pajamas and making a mess in the kitchen. Because we had just gotten home from the break, so the kitchen was already a mess. Craft extravaganza. So I said, absolutely, Mayor, I will take a look at the statement and I'll review it with our city attorney immediately. And let me know, what else can I do to support you? What else can I do to help? And he said, well, this is a big ask, but can you be in Portland tomorrow at 3 o'clock? Now 10 in the morning on Sunday. And I said, absolutely. I will be there tomorrow. You can count on me. What do you need me to do? Do I just need to be present and physically present and standing in solidarity? Do you need us to prepare remarks? Do you need information for a press release? Let me know. And he said, okay, I will can I get my team in touch with you? I know we're going to need quotes from every mayor who's joining us for this press release. And if you could prepare 2 minutes to speak at this press conference, I'd appreciate it. I would like for every mayor to speak. And that collectively we will speak to hundreds of thousands, millions of Oregonians' concerns and responsibilities that we carry as mayors of our communities. So thank goodness that this is the first week of the month, because normally I would have 2 city council meetings, maybe a public hearing on a Monday night. And 3 o'clock in Portland doesn't work very well with in-person work sessions that start at 5:30 and 7:30 and go until 10 p.m. So I was able to join, and that was really important. I was also able to have some really helpful conversations with our Attorney General's office on the way. I've been in touch with him as well, and the flow of information from Attorney General Rayfield's office, which you can follow through social media, but also they're working very hard to get good information out into the world. I'm really appreciating their diligence and the time they're also taking to communicate clearly to people what's happening. So I'm going to share with you the 2-minute statement that I read at that press conference, and then talk a little bit about how this connects to where we're going and what we're doing, and quite frankly, the fact that We have so much important work to do in our community. We have so many needs. We have so much opportunity. There's such richness here for us to connect with and to support. And circumstances like the federalization of the National Guard and the deployment of that into cities is a big distraction from the real work in time and attention, our most precious community resources, but also in actual dollars and resources, because we locally are responsible for our police, who have to protect our local property, who have to address any actions that are outside of lawful action, and are trying to navigate that circumstance with federal agencies who are not communicating with us. They are not acting as partners. They're not de-escalating circumstances. They're not explaining their behavior. That puts our local law enforcement and our sworn local law enforcement professionals in really difficult circumstances that they're doing, I think, an exceptional job of navigating. And the reason that you do not see Eugene police at the protests at our federal building is because we have the right to peaceful protest in this country. We will protect that right. Everyone in our community is welcomed to that work. It's also really important to know that our police will not step in and advance and be the aggressor in any circumstance, especially related to federal agencies and things that they might be doing. So again, this puts us in a difficult situation. What I shared yesterday in Portland is that it was a pleasure to be standing with Mayor Wilson and our metro area mayors. That I learned in that moment. I knew that some of our metro area mayors were veterans. I did not know how many of them were veterans, and how many of them are also children of career military. One of my fellow mayors shared that her father, 44-year National Guard serviceman, had just passed away the preceding week. And you can imagine the responsibility that she felt in that moment, and also the sadness and the grief. The conversation yesterday is about the city of Portland, but it was also bigger than the city of Portland. And really, this is a conversation we need to be having across all of our cities, across our communities, across our country. And I hope that Oregon in this way can be a model for other parts of our country, networking and organizing local elected officials who are deeply engaged with community on the ground in a conversation that can help us set a floor to this engagement. There is absolutely no question that Oregonians do not want or need federal troops deployed in our cities, and that's in Portland or anywhere else. I joined Metro Mayors Mayor Wilson in Portland yesterday to add my voice. There's no emergency, no insurrection, and no disaster taking place in Portland. It is like the first full weekend of autumn. It was rainy yesterday, just a normal day in the city. Buses running on time, people hustling to get to work and to their appointments. Mayors truly do know our communities best. We are on the ground every day, working in community every day, and the federal resources that could help us to meet the full range of Americans' needs have been receding, not advancing. Federal funding for healthcare, affordable housing, and infrastructure are the actions that would help people, actually help us help people in our communities, and that would help us to rise to the occasion of the 21st century. This federal intervention and deployment of National Guard troops will not help us with that other very important work. Our cities in the United States are where about 80% of Americans live. Our cities need partners that are reliable and accountable, not threatening and performative. And I want to reiterate that the state of Oregon and the cities within it are beautiful, safe places to call home, and that we are also very serious about the community-based and transparent work that's being done at the local level with local law enforcement professionals to support public safety. You all know downtown Eugene very well. You know it is anchored by the Saturday Market and Lane County Farmers Market, Holt Center, our other extraordinary arts and cultural institutions, our businesses, so many people who bring life into the center of our city. It's also a place whereby every statistic related to public safety and quality of life issues, and these are stats from a recent city council presentation by our chief of police and Ray Brown, who runs our work downtown. By every one of those public safety and quality of life issue measurements, we are improving the double digits. What you might hear, versus what is the truth? What is the work that's actually happening? This is what measurable and meaningful work looks like on the ground in our communities. And this is the work that we are doing in Eugene every day in real time. This is where our community's focus and attention is needed. And every mayor who was standing with me yesterday in Portland is similarly dedicated to serving and supporting their communities in such meaningful and effective ways. That is where our collective attention needs to be. The currency of leadership is attention. So we really need to think about how our attention is being spent in these times. I'm ad-libbing a little bit with you all, but that's because we're here together. In all of this work, we will stick together. We're standing together. So I joined Portland's mayors, leaders, Oregon's leaders, and a statewide coalition of institutions and stakeholders in opposing the deployment of federal troops in Portland and called on the administration to immediately reconsider that decision. When we finished that press conference, follow-up conversations that I had with our mayors were about how we stay connected and where we go from here. The League of Oregon Cities is meeting in Portland this week. That's another opportunity for Oregon's mayors and leadership to be connected and to be talking about how it is that we are seeing this moment in time and what it is that we can do to protect our communities. The thing that keeps me awake at night when thinking about these circumstances is only that we will fall behind in the sharing of information and the understanding of the reality that is happening in our community. Because it's very apparent to me as your mayor that there is a completely legitimate amount of fear in our community at this point in time. There are members of our community who are being actively pursued and persecuted, who are having their rights eroded systematically by this administration. And we need to stay connected with each other. We need to stick together. So please help us in that work to keep people on the same page in community and to keep the lines of communication open. That's probably the most important thing. And if someone says to you, well, I heard that, please ask where. Please ask where. Please ask for more information. Please clarify if that wasn't what you heard, even if that comes with a lot of emotion, that moment. Because these challenging times that we are living through in these circumstances, they are not happening in a vacuum. We still have trust to build within our community. We still have an extraordinary amount of work to do to support the equity of opportunity in our community. We still have years of work to do to accomplish the goals that we have related to affordable housing, to meeting the crisis of homelessness, to ensuring that all of our public spaces are safe and ready for the 21st century to support the quality of life that we need to be present here in the city of Eugene. We have an incredible amount of work to do on economic development and on the sustainability of our local economy. Again, these are all the areas where our attention really needs to be focused. But those were challenges pre-existing, some of which had also relationships pre-existing that this difficulty now presents itself adjacent to. So please especially pay attention to conversations where it seems like bias is being leaned on, and a lack of trust is being exploited to bring people to conclusions that might lead them further apart in our community. We're always trying to work to be closer together. I know there are going to be lots of questions today. I'm just going to share one other detail. I brought information to share with you about our community survey, about our work to hire a new city manager, which will be one of the most important decisions that this current city council makes, and that I make with them in these coming months. Information about downtown, about our budget and the general fund, about housing. Really, we could talk about just about anything. Have some of that information with me, but I just want to let you know our community survey, first community survey we've done in a few years. We had a work session on this at council the other week. And there's an open-ended survey that's available to everyone, but we also call and work with a consultant to bring a representative survey forward so that we have a picture of the people who've engaged with that survey that are in alignment representatively with the demographics of our community. And we get really pretty close in that effort. But in that survey, while there are many areas identified for wanting more work, for wanting more investment, for wanting improvement, 81% of respondents said they are either very satisfied or somewhat satisfied with their life as a whole right now in the city of Eugene. That's kind of amazing. I don't want you to miss it. I don't think it made a headline, strangely. Too good of news. Only 6% are neutral, and 10% are dissatisfied, and 3% are very dissatisfied. 3% are very dissatisfied. You know about that 3% number. You know the influence of 3% of people on a sense of self, on a sense of community. I do not at all mean by saying this that we don't have an incredible amount of work to do, and that it doesn't stay in my mind continuously as to how we can meet the challenges and fulfill the needs of the people who are disappointed or dissatisfied with our community of feeling. But it is also really easy to spin a picture of yourself that is dimmer than the really bright community that we have here in Eugene. And so as we're thinking about all of the areas that we want to improve, all the areas where we're doing work, if we are doing that in the first half of the hour, please spend the latter half of the hour reconnecting in this community, reconnecting with the people you love, the things that you love, the places that you love, investing more of your energy in those things, because we need to turn that wheel. And it's really important that everyone in our community feel joy, especially as we're navigating these really uncertain times. So I'm going to open it to Q&A, I think, and just thank you all for attending.
We're going to gather your questions. I'm going to use this other mic.
I'm going to reassemble the microphone.
So, questions?
Go down the microphone. Terry?
First question. So this one is more about, let's see, are we good here? Can you all hear me here? If I really talk into it, I tell everybody to do that. So this is an invitation for everyone to attend a forum here at First United Methodist led by Jenny Gordon using the book of Brian Life, Art, or Do. Is that correct? Did I get that right? It's Sunday morning, so that's from Shirley. But what we're really asking for now is questions. The League is trying to reach out to all of Lake County. What can you do as mayor to extend ourselves to other outlying mayors and cities within our county?
Oh, what a great question. Thinking about the time that I spent out in our lovely county, I would start with the Granges in a lot of places. I would think about the places where people are already gathering, and I'm always thinking about this, like, how do I make it easy? How do I put myself in a place that makes it easy for people to feel connected with their local government and with their mayor? So I would start with the Granges. I think also, certainly up the McKinsey, through all of the work that has been happening with the organizations and community groups affiliated with the recovery from the Holiday Farm fire, those social capital networks are strong and very well reinforced from all of that work that's been happening. I would reach out there. I also think that the chambers of commerce on the coast, Florence Chamber of Commerce could be a great place to connect with as a touch point, and that actually could be true with every chamber of commerce within Lake County, but I'm just kind of thinking from farthest east to farthest west, where might be a jump off point. And I would offer them something of value. Like, we're hearing a lot about things like National Guard troops or about, military and law enforcement questions. Would you like to have a conversation with the League of Women Voters about Posse Comitatus and the Insurrection Act? Would you like to know more about the history of these things and how they relate to our decisions as people who populate a democracy? Those could be really interesting questions. I think everyone is actually interested in those questions if we can frame them in a way that is seeking to connect, not seeking to cast judgment, not seeking to diminish, but seeking connection.
Great, thank you. What are the next steps for funding fire and emergency services?
Great question.
Expected that one.
Yes, definitely, and that's some of the information that I brought with me. So, not surprising to you all to hear that also in our community survey that a couple of the most important areas that the city of Eugene has were related to reliable response for fire and EMS, and also a sense of personal safety, which connects to public safety capacity. Other very significant areas of interest were around the quality of K-12 education, cleanliness of public spaces, the safety and quality or well-maintained quality of our streets, as well as our parks and public spaces and open spaces, and a healthy natural environment. Those are the attributes that are most important to people who participated in assembling this representative picture of our community. For Eugene and for Springfield, so Eugene and Springfield Fire, we have a current conversation that is coming back to council in just this next week and a half about fire governance. This also could be an area where the league could be very helpful in reaching out and sharing information with our community, because I would have to say, if you said to someone like, what do you want to do tonight? There's a city council meeting about fire governance. I don't know if they would say, let's go. That would just rally them to the place. But it is an incredibly important conversation, because this is the finishing work of the operational merger that Eugene Springfield Fire began well over a decade ago, but we never finished the questions about governance. And Eugene and Springfield obviously are also in very different places with their fire service, with the assets that they hold. There's quite a lot of complexity in this question. So this conversation will be at City Council multiple times through the fall, a couple of times at least in October and again in November. One of my hopes in working through a pretty intensive process last spring to get us to a workable conclusion, preserving our core community services with our budget, was that one of the nuances that wasn't getting much attention is that had that argument persisted all the way to the November ballot, we wouldn't have been able to talk about fire governance at all before our well-tenured city manager retired and departed, which would have been a real loss for us as a community. We would have lost a lot of institutional history just in that transition. So we are now able to focus that time in the fall, and my expectation is that the council will come to a shared understanding of the problem we face around funding, around the strain that our EMS and first responders are under currently, and that we will build a path and a plan for how it is that we fund those services adequately, and establish more stability for the workforce that's doing that critical work in our community every day. But that's on deck this fall at City Council.
What proactive measures are we taking in the city of Eugene to uphold Oregon's sanctuary law and ensuring we're not cooperating with ICE and jeopardizing our immigrant neighbors?
So we have Oregon's sanctuary laws are the oldest in the country. City of Eugene's sanctuary laws are also very well established. Our rights of individuals ordinance. And the work that we are doing related to those local laws is we are upholding them. There isn't anything that we are doing to change them. We are following them. And what that means is that we do not collect or gather any information about people based on an assumption of immigration status. And we are not doing what is being discussed around the country as a standard practice of the ICE agency. So I want to say that I think one of the things that's especially difficult and painful about this experience is that we do see things all around us and all around the country that are very different from what is happening in the state of Oregon and in the city of Eugene. But I have said since I became mayor that we have very well established values around this work. We protect people's individual rights. We are committed to a culture of belonging in our city. And we will defend the laws that we have in place. And I know that our state partners are committed similarly.
It seems like we have spent millions of dollars on the homeless. It remains a problem. It also seems like the programs are fragmented. Is that so? How can we come together to address the issue without throwing them out of areas? And I just want to mention Anna is here from Community Supported Shelters. And if you want to catch her at the end of the talk, she may be giving you insights in terms of the work they're doing there.
Thank you for this question also, and the opportunity to highlight that the crisis of homelessness in our community, and particularly the experience of unsheltered homelessness, is one that I am committed to us continuing to work to get our arms around. When I was talking with people and even visiting some of our safe sleep sites about the daily experience that our nonprofit partners have in helping our community to fulfill a body of work, one of the things that I learned is that when a person has been experiencing unsheltered homelessness for a period of time and is able to access, say, a place at community supported shelters, that for the first week, when you have a space, a place, very small, compact place, but a place where you can lock a door and put your head on a pillow, on a mattress, and actually rest. I think it's important for us to think about how that would feel when you've maybe been not sleeping well for an extended period of time because you feel unsafe. Certainly you're exposed to elements that are dangerous and uncomfortable. That's a massive shift. And what was shared with me at Community Supported Shelters and through with some of our other nonprofits is that in most cases, people who step into that first moment of safety, that they just sleep for a week. Because why wouldn't you? I would feel really good. And then the second week begins sort of like the renourishing of the body and returning to, maybe clearer thinking, and also starting to put back the pieces of what you might need to be a person living in contemporary community and modern society, like an identification card and access to information and ability to, have access to a phone number, be connected in community. This is part of a recovery process from an experience of being without shelter that is really important in our community. And so I want to thank all of our nonprofit partners in our shelter systems, but also across our service systems for the incredibly difficult work that they do. We ask them to do that work for not very much money relative to the services that are requested and that we put forward in proposals. Not to say that the amounts of money aren't large. When you think about the amounts of money that individual social service providers are receiving to deliver the kind of work that we are asking for, with the challenges of the population that we are also asking for them to serve, it's really important that we have these partners and that we respect the work that they're doing. One of the things that I found surprising, and I see as a real opportunity for us in the city of Eugene, is that I bear some of the responsibility for this because I spent about 8 years talking with people all around our community about our housing crisis and about the crisis of homelessness in our community and about the fact that we had the highest per capita rate of homelessness in the country and that we had a housing market that was second only to Seattle in terms of its housing constraint. And those data points, when you hear them come up in a conversation, that's a product of years of community outreach from myself and from a whole collection of partners who joined me in the housing advocacy work that we did with Better Housing Together. And that organization persists, and the work that they're doing in housing advocacy persists. But one of the things that I see as an opportunity for us is to not see our efforts as fractured, but to truly understand them as strategic and to do more to align resources with the areas where we are being most effective, because we know resources are limited, and also to acknowledge that we are now doing all of this work in a context where the federal government's disinvestment in our most vulnerable neighbors and disinvestment in health and human services funding is going to make it incredibly challenging for everywhere in our country to meet the needs of their most vulnerable community members and to address homelessness. So you all have the context. We're going to be doing hard work in a difficult time, right? And there are sometimes when it just helps to observe the obvious. This is hard work, and we're doing it under stress. Naturally, it's going to feel challenging. I would not expect it to feel any other way. If it didn't feel challenging, I might be concerned that maybe we're not applying ourselves fully to this challenge. But we are going to, I think, see some new partnerships and I hope some collaborative strategies come forward in this coming year that connects to some of the work that I'll be doing as a part of this global city leadership initiative that is funded through the Harvard Center for Cities and Bloomberg Philanthropy. And I think that we are going to continue, as Eugene has in so many ways, to model innovative, socially entrepreneurial solutions. We are going to continue to work the problem and to come up with creative ways to meet community needs. That's really who we are. We do that all the time in all sorts of different areas, in all sorts of different industries. And so that's, I think, what we also need to bring to our challenges with homelessness.
So we're going to keep going. You're good for a while. So this is a really important question. Why in the hell do you want to be mayor?
Everything was going so well. Oh, why?
We got excuseless.
I'll share two thoughts. One is that when people ask me why I decided to become a candidate for mayor and wanted to step into this responsibility, it's because I thought I could be useful, that I thought I could help us. And I am motivated by our shared success and by our connection and community, all different shapes and sizes of community, to feel that we are understanding a challenge, setting out plans, and rising to the occasion. Like, we can do that in all sorts of different ways. And I am personally motivated by that approach to life. It took me about 10 years of being asked to run for mayor. I have been asked to run for office for a decade by different people in our community before finally a consolidated collection of people and from different perspectives in the community asked for me to consider this as the next step. And when our former mayor, Lucy Dennis, who I had a great relationship with, became also one of those voices saying, like, really, I really want you to think about this. You know, give it some thought. And that's what I needed, is I needed a chance to actually give it some thought. I've been doing my own architectural urban design practice, public interest work related to housing advocacy, and then I wrote a textbook called the Sustainable Urban Design Handbook, which was published in the spring of 2024. And it was when we submitted that book to the publisher that I was like, okay, now I have to spend rest for a week. And then I will give this some thought. And then once I started to think about it, it made more sense. As an architect and as a person who studies cities, there's a lot about the work of the city that is very familiar to me. And the technical aspects of it are not particularly stressful. And I think that they're interesting. And I think that that's an advantage. I also am the type of architect and the type of urban designer who really loves working with community. I like the messy process. I like the work of building a vision together. And that is a lot of the work of the mayor. Just being able to connect across from very technical issues to really high level vision, and then be able to be persistent and hold on to those things.
Thank you. So Kaarin is our 40th Eugene mayor, and she's the 4th woman mayor. Thank you. That says something. Can local law enforcement be tasked to protect peaceful protesters from the aggressive actions of ICE and National Guard?
This is going to be a question that I wish I had Chief Chris Skinner with me to be able to answer with in specificity, because I always worry that I'm not getting the language exactly right as it relates to some of these very important issues. But what I will say is that the engagement that people are having with peaceful protest in our community, the Eugene Police will not be present. Eugene Police, our local laws are laws related to the protection of individual rights. And the right that people have to peaceful protest is going to mean that there's no reason for the Eugene Police to be present in that environment. Peaceful protest is lawful. Engaging with peaceful protest in our community is not a criminal act. So the Eugene Police will not be present in that. There have been some cases where I've seen people say, well, Eugene Police are patrolling us with drones and then sending information to federal partners. That is not happening. That is absolutely not happening. The responsibility that our police have is to the total safety of the community, including property, including the right-of-way. With some of our protests, which the coordination between the organizers of our large protests like the No Kings Rally, and another of those coming around soon, that coordination has been great because we've also seen that it's important for police to be present in protests to protect the safety of protesters from things like the right-of-way and vehicles that are passing, but also to be paying attention when there are bad actors that are trying to incite violence or that are doing anything that is unlawful within those large groups. That's the work that Eugene Police has been present with in the protests that we've had this year. They will not be engaging proactively with ICE in our communities. There is an unfortunate absence of communication between our federal partners and our law enforcement. That's a real break with what I would understand to be the typical habit of information sharing. But I think that they are doing the best that they can to navigate this circumstance. And it's one of the things that's also really unfortunate about people not being identified, not being clear with who they are and what they're doing, is that it is easy for people to think that this is police who are present here, who are doing things to obstruct access to my freedoms and my right to protest, and that's not the case. They're doing their best to pay attention to a really difficult circumstance.
I want to be respectful of your time. I have one question, but to let you know, people have concerns about cahoots. They have concern about, do you have a plan for troops that were sent to Eugene? We're not going to get to all of this, but what are plans for a hospital in Eugene? And tied to that, does the mayor's office have a role in improving the availability of health care? Interested in what we met the new 4J superintendent about protecting students, and we know you have students in your household. How was the poll taken? No one asked me. And yeah, sometimes that happens. Sometimes people don't ask me either. And about cloud technology, because you're an architect at heart and in service in that realm. Here's a good architectural question. The vacated Sacred Heart Medical Center offers a great opportunity. Can the city plan an active role in pulling together a collaborative consortium to acquire that property, design, build, and run an attractive, alternative, affordable, they've got this down, quality, multi-level, but not high-rise housing development that is incorporated sustainably in green space, a pilot project. We do not want any more schlocky, monolith, charcoal gray high-rise. How about that? Finish it off.
That's a two-sided question. I want to first say that for the questions about cahoots, we are gathering information in that program of the Whitebird Clinic. There's information being gathered about the gaps that still exist in our emergency response system and our crisis response system locally. And that information will be coming back to City Council. Mobile crisis services of Lane County does exist in our community. So if anyone says to you, we don't have any mobile crisis access in our community, please let them know that we do. that Lane County's mobile crisis system has been providing high acuity care and service within our community, and that is an important thing for people to know about calling for support. And we're going to learn more about how that system is working locally and what else we need to do, and then go through a transparent and competitive process to be able to fill in any gaps that are remaining. And there'll be lots of questions before council and our community about how to do that. There was a quick question about the new 4-day superintendent, and I will just say that I had coffee with Dr. Nicholson this morning. Really delighted to have her leadership in our community and looking forward to working more with her. I invited her to a meeting of our Youth Advisory Council and offered myself to any of the school assemblies that might be happening around Eugene, and will similarly do so with our Bethel superintendent, because I think it's really important that young people in our community also feel connected to their local government. But the main question was about University District Hospital and that building's for use. And structurally, I'll zoom out and say as an architect that I have lived in Eugene for 21 years continuously. The first time I came here was 30 years ago. I've lived here over 25 years in my life. I see us aspire to this kind of consortium model or this type of super project frequently, which I think is really interesting. I think it's really interesting that we often attach to a single building or a single site all of the things that we want to see accomplished in our community. And as an urbanist and a person who thinks a lot about community and the life between buildings and the different contributions that can be stronger when places are in close proximity to one another and doing the best thing that they can do, that I would love for us to take a little bit of a zoomed out view of what we really would like to see. And so what I heard in that question is that there's a desire for more architectural beauty. That was at the end. There's a desire for more green space. There's a desire for sustainability. There's an ethic attached to reuse and not waste of materials. And a couple of other things. Housing was also in there. I mentioned that because I think it's important that when we're setting out a course for ourselves in community, that we keep track of what we're really trying to accomplish. And then as much as is possible, be nimble and creative and collaborative about how we get there. Because the 21st century is full of barriers to us being able to accomplish things if we are too fixed in how we think about those goals being realized. Thinking about the University District building and the future of that site, the influence that the mayors can have on healthcare, what I will say is that it was truly a pleasure to be invited into and then to have the opportunity to be in conversation with Bushnell University and to support Bushnell University's advocacy to essentially pull out part of that site and use it for their new School of Health Professions, which is an important part of expanding our nursing practitioners and behavioral health professionals in our community. That's the northern portion of the Sacred Heart site, and being able to advocate for and support their request to Peace Health in Washington State to have their offer considered, which they just announced in the end of August that they were successful in that work. Really proud of that step. That's an important part of 11th, and it's an important part of building capacity that's immediately contiguous to Bushnell University and also adjacent to the University of Oregon. The remainder of the site, I do think it will be redeveloped into something that is, that probably looks close to the housing that is already across the street on 13th and that is on Kincaid across from PLC, Prince Lucian Campbell, on the University of Oregon. I say that because I have an awareness of the development or the development team or site owner, and I think that that is the type of project that they build, which will be focused on likely initially meeting a market of university-aged housing, student housing, but like our other student housing will likely quickly become housing that has many other different types of people also living within it, which is one of the things that we're learning about other housing projects. I do not see a path where the city of Eugene takes ownership of that building, because if it were possible to retrofit those building systems and that building structurally to be sound for the 21st century that we now design for, someone else would have done it. And the city of Eugene would likely be taking on a massive liability with that type of work. The parallel to that, another historic project that the city has been working as a partner to support is the redevelopment of the steam plant, which is down on the riverfront at the bend. That project similarly looks nice and solid from the outside, right? It's a masonry building, not reinforced. Needs all new systems, needs new structural system, needs a new roof. Not a building that could just be occupied, you know, on the cheap and repurposed for something that's a change of use with all sorts of exiting requirements and structural requirements for safety, for human life safety. So we are already working right now on trying to get that project to come with us into the 21st century. It was built 115 years ago. We want it to be with us another 115 years. But I do not see a future in which the city of Eugene is involved on the former University District site. And it looks to me like that site is being prepared for deconstruction.
Thank you.
And you can always count on me to tell you what I know about something, even if it's not exactly what would be the best answer.
Come on. He does get around. So I have some announcements to make and obviously some thank yous. We obviously have a lot of those, but my first thank you is to you, a small gift. This is your own private copy of the Constitution of the United States of America, which you can actually pass on because you probably already have one. But with something from your heritage, I thought you would appreciate a hand-knit item.
Oh,
and it's in the color of purple, which is a League of Women Voters. Keep warm. Keep warm when you're running around. Amazing. So we have a lot of thank yous. I need to get my thank you list out because they're long. And every month, Jim Dotson and Rhonda Livesey come and do sound in different venues with different equipment, trying to just make it so that we can all hear each other. And I want to thank them profusely. Thank them. And there's Rhonda. Rhonda, yeah. We need that tech team. I want to guide you all to this month's Argus, that if you get the mail copy, you got it in the mail. If you get the digital copy, get the digital. That is jam-packed with the information about what's happening at the national level, what your national league is doing in trying to fight these onslaughts. And so really you are part of this national organization that's bigger than just us. So make sure that you check out the things that are in the Argus. The League of Women Voters US has joined as a national partner for the No Kings 2 protest on October 18th to stand up against hate and authoritarianism. It's a non-violent day of action. They have guidelines on how to move towards de-escalation if there happens to be an incident near you. So that information is all on the League's website. This is a day of action about promoting unity and encouraging citizens from all backgrounds to stand together against threats to democracy. It's from 10 to 1, 3 hours at the Wyman Lyman Morris United States Courthouse. That's 4th and East Avenue. You know where that is. So again, we will get notices out to you if we want a gathering place. We have some signs and marches. Do be careful about the wording of signs so that you recognize that we are a nonpartisan organization if you are in a group representing the League. The sunshine reports have been amazing. I don't know, Mayor, if you know that we have been since February sending people to all sorts of elected official meetings to just be in the room, to listen, to observe. And then those reports go out to our membership, but they're also available on our website so anybody can read them. And the people that have been and doing that work are just remarkable. From editing the notes to try to make them a sizable read, but it's lots of detail in terms of following issues that City of Springfield, City of the 4J School District, City of Eugene, the Springfield School District, EWEB, LTV. We are in the room and we're watching. And so great work, everyone, for pulling that together in such a short period of time. I want to thank the cashiers, our table hosts, those people who are the behind the scenes doers, and again, Jim and Rhonda, and all of you, you know who you are. And most of all, I want to thank Ruth. Ruth does so much work. You know her. I mean, you really don't need me when you have Ruth along. She just kind of takes care of everything. Linda, others, thank you again. Thank you all for being here. And remember the yellow menus, take those along, put them at the front desk if you want to volunteer. We need you all, and we need to follow the mayor's advice in terms of ramping up. So we are there. We'll see you on October 18th.
Oh, you see it?